What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fear the Walking Dead after show on AFTERBUZZ TV. This is for Season 2, Episode 2, We All Fall Down. Stick with us. We're going to break down the full episode for you. We'll see you guys in just a second.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion. AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
I wanted that heat.
Such a downer of an opener of a song.
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, it feels like there's dead things walking around and we're trying to survive and
know,
make the best of it or something.
And I wanted
Totally not the case, maybe.
Yeah.
You totally know that someone's going to get this and go, oh, I love that episode so much, that's got to be our first dance song.
Yeah.
Worst wedding song ever.
Yeah.
I thought this episode was so awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to say right off the bat, before we
I
talk
know.
about what this is or who we are, what you guys are watching, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it's
very, very
my
strong.
favorite one so far,
Yeah.
season 1 and 2.
Kind of a like heartbreaker, like your stomach just kind of sinks at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
I walked away from it very like, wow, I was like, emotional. I don't know.
There were actually several points where going into ad breaks, we did literally stop watching the episodes, look at each other and go like,
Did this?
what?
Yeah, what?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a very WTF episode.
That
which
was probably, I'm trying to think what the first episode of The Walking Dead that felt like that was, but this is the first episode of this show so far to me that has felt like that.
Yeah.
Where I really felt like I got punched in the stomach a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real gut puncher, gut wrencher. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So guys, this is AFTERBUZZ TV, and this is the Fear the Walking Dead After Show, and I'm Ben Bateman, and these are my two lovely co-hosts. Look at them.
Is
Hello.
up, guys?
Yeah.
Look at how alive they are. They're
know.
not dead things.
No.
Well, not yet, anyways. We got, what, 14 more episodes to go?
Yeah.
So
Don't
keep your
die
fingers
yet.
crossed from us. Yes, guys,
First
please.
and foremost, we have Miss Ashley Chatman.
Yes. Hey, guys. What is up? Follow me on Twitter, Ashley_Chatman. Tweet at me. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. I'm also on Facebook, Ashley Chatman, with a T, not a P.
We have Mr. Simon Thompson.
Hello
the one
there.
and only. The one and only.
You can find me on Twitter at ShowbizSimon, also on Instagram at ShowbizSimon. I've made a Facebook page.
Oh, he's
I know,
fancy.
You're not an
fancy, huh?
idiot, Simon. Well done. You can use a computer. Yeah, it's facebook.com/this is Simon Thompson. And all my stuff goes on there, but mostly talking about this stuff right now. And I'm going to be monitoring the chat. this
Lovely.
evening.
Oh, yes.
So
Please
I'm
chat.
kind of like the secretary.
And
to
we can
this
find a
evening.
lot of your stuff on Forbes, right?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
Forbes is one of my many outlets. Forbes, IGN.
He's so fancy.
So, anybody who's watching this, and I'm hoping you guys have seen Die Hard, the very first Die Hard movie.
Yes.
And there's,
Yeah.
and Alan Rickman's spot is a classic line. It's like, I've read about them in Forbes.
Yeah.
So why don't you just use that as your line every time? You could.
Yeah,
read,
I could do.
You can read
You've
No matter what it's
You'd have
about,
read about
yeah.
me in Forbes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a go-to. Anyway, guys, so this is season 2, episode 2. This is called We All Fall Down.
Yes.
We are going to break the full episode down for you, and just before we do, we should remind everybody that we are on iTunes. If you go and you rate and review, it will allow us to continue to provide free content for everybody, which we like to do, and we will continue doing if you guys help us out. So just give us 5 stars, 4 stars. Or anything else if you feel the need to, but ratings and reviews do help, and of course comment below. We're on SoundCloud, we're on Stitcher, all of those things.
Yep.
And let's get into the episode. We're gonna be doing a thing at the end of the episode. We do every episode we implemented
yes.
called Carol Watch,
Yep.
where which of the characters in this universe of Fear the Walking Dead do we think is most likely to become this show's Carol, the sort of undercover badass. And so we'll reveal our picks at the end of this episode for who our money's on at this moment. But this one is directed by Adam Davidson. He's a big seasoned TV director, over 60 credits on IMDb, just definitely killing it in the TV game. Written by some writers that are not particularly seasoned. Only a couple credits, both of them. Worked on Graceland, Mr. Robot, a show called Cooper.
Yep.
So yeah, I was a little surprised about that. I don't know. I would have thought that the people who were in the show maybe had a little more. I mean, maybe not cred is the right word.
Yeah, but I think that's probably one of the reasons that it was actually so fresh. Because
Yeah.
I think that, we already said this sort of last week, this season tonally is very different, but tonight's episode had tonally some of what we had in the first season, but some stuff that was really, as you said earlier, gut-wrenching stuff. It pulled a few punches. And I think that freshens the writers and the fact that this isn't the kind of thing they usually write.
Right.
So they kind of went to town, and they, not going to lie, they absolutely nailed it. It was a really strong episode.
I agree. And I really like this episode. Because of the writing, I felt like it focused more on really portraying the characters and them dealing with this and this being still very new to them.
Yeah.
I think that that's what kind of helps me get into this show and really separate it from The Walking Dead. It's because The Walking Dead, their experience, they've been in it for a really, really long time. Them everything, like all of their interactions with people, you know, it's still them trying to come to grips with this as being the new reality and hoping that this is not going to be the permanent reality.
Right.
So like even with all of the interactions and the writing, I really like that they're trying to, it appears that they're trying to focus more on that than, you know, any other type of aspect that they could, or any other direction that they could go in with this show.
Well,
And that's
also
what
with The
helped
Walking
dignifies it.
Dead, I think what they're doing is they're all very much moving towards the same solution, whichever group you're looking at, whether it's Rick groups or anybody else's, they're all heading for the same goal.
Right.
At the moment, we certainly saw this a lot tonight. Everybody is feeling different things in very different ways. They all have very different viewpoints, very different ways of rationalizing things, and the language that they use.
Yeah, and coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanisms, and they all justify that to themselves, but they're still they're all heading in the same direction, but they're not necessarily in the same vehicles.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean.
I think one of the major themes with tonight's episode was varying levels of maturity. That was something that I kept. They kind of were rubbing at every scene, because you had everything from these little kids, the most innocent characters, some of probably the most innocent characters, if not the most innocent that we've seen on either of these zombie shows to date, which is pretty effective. It's been having actual children that have no idea what's going on, that are that young, and that are so innocent and so protected. That is not something we've seen. So.
Well, it was innocent, but then there was also a brilliant scene with the younger son, Harry.
Yeah.
And when he was showing other people the dolls that he had.
Yeah.
The action men, and he went through them and said, "Oh, these were basically my neighbours and Uncle so and so, whatever." And then one of them obviously had a mark on their head. And it was the way when asked the question, "What's that?"
Yeah.
It was explained. Well, that's what happens
when
now.
people get sick,
Yeah.
And it was very matter of fact, understanding that it was the end of a life.
Right.
But it was kind of like you may as well have been, oh yeah, well when you have toast you put butter on it.
Yeah.
You know, it was
Yeah.
just for something so fresh and for someone so young, it's like. There you go. That's just how we do it.
Thanks, I'm gonna be thinking about toasting
Yeah.
butter.
Yeah,
now
sorry.
that I-
This is the most morbid toast I've ever had.
I think it's interesting,
no, that's
right?
true.
Because so you have the kids who are
Yeah.
super, you know, they're at the lowest end.
Yeah.
In The Walking Dead, you don't really get this varying level of understanding as much. You did get the Andersons in Alexandria, which was sort of its own thing, but rarely do the groups you come across, for instance. We'll just jump right in here. They dock because they find out that San Diego has been burned, so that's how it opens up, and we find out that in this log, San Diego's not safe. It's in napalm, so they have to go aboard the shore. They see this light, and so they roll up and they meet the Gearys. This man George Geary, he's far too trusting. This is not something. This is not the way that it works anymore. You don't have strangers show up in this world, but this is so early on that that's not apparent anymore. That would never happen in the world that we live in now. Years later, 2 years from now, in this story, this will not happen anymore. Where you can roll up to somebody's house, yell, "We're not threatening. We're safe.
Right.
We're not sick," and they'd open the front door and a child would run out. If they have two children to protect, no way would that ever happen. They'd be up with a sniper rifle telling you to get off their property.
Yeah.
Or just not even give you warning, just shoot you dead.
Just shoot you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your boat probably wouldn't even be able to dock, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Was if you look at just like sort of the varying levels of understanding, and that's something that they can really get to showcase here as things do fall apart.
Yeah.
So anyway, they show up and they meet the Gearys. Just everybody's just a little off from the get-go, right?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Of course.
What was your guys' feeling when you met Seth?
I mean, obviously, he just seemed very protective and very much kind of like, who are these people? Why are they here? Like, kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't take too much offense to that because these are strangers, and from their perspective, they don't know what the motives are of Madison and Travis and everybody else who's come ashore. And then, of course, we didn't know at that point, but then knowing sort of his mindset and how he was brought up, it made more sense later. But yeah, I mean, of course, everything seemed really shifty and shady.
Yeah.
Coming in, and then with the mom, her asking all of those really, sort of inquiring questions, and just her coming off as very, I mean, not aggressive, super aggressive, but it was a little much.
She was pushing for sure.
Very, very pushy. So, I mean, of course, you could sense that there was going to be something there, but you were still trying to fill it out and figure out, okay, are they going to be,
Right.
crazies, or are they going to be allies?
Well, it was really interesting for me because the moment that he sort of came into the room, the first time we met him, he was having a brief conversation with the mother.
Yeah.
And you instantly knew that even though this was a very close knit family unit, it was all about the family together. You live together. You know, everything is done as a unit.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that the way that he viewed his mother and the way that he viewed his father was very much a case of we are a unit, but there are stronger people, there are survivors,
Yep.
and there are people who are surviving
Right.
because they're doing what they should do. And his use of language for stuff was really interesting, because when he was going out to kill the walkers,
Yeah.
to do that, he referred to it as chores,
Yeah.
maintenance,
Survivalist.
survivalist. You know, when he
Yeah.
says, is your dad a survivalist? No, he's a... I can't remember
It's
writing.
like a self-sustainer or
Yes,
something
he's
like that?
self-reliant,
Self-reliant.
and yeah, was one of the few phrases that he used. And it's almost like it's again very matter of fact, but it's sugarcoating and almost justifying, giving it a functional reason,
Yeah.
rather than we're doing this purely to save our own skin. It's almost like this is my role, this is my job, this is what I do.
Yeah.
If I'm a trash collector, I collect trash. I'm doing this. I'm doing chores. I'm
Yeah.
doing maintenance. It's not survival. It's just what you do. And he's slightly cold,
Yeah.
as a, which I think whether that shows he's already kind of broken,
Yeah.
or whether he's trying to distance himself from what
Yeah.
he knows, obviously what is intended for the family. It's quite interesting.
But that was really interesting to watch, though, because under normal circumstances, you wouldn't see that as unordinary, you know? It would just be, okay, they're people who are self-reliant, and they kind of want to be on their own. And so for them to kind of be in this bubble, so to speak, I just thought that was very interesting to sort of see them coming into this world and them trying, like they weren't collapsing almost like the rest of the world has been, you
Yeah.
know, where, okay, this, panic attack, life is over as we know it. They're like, no, this is just kind of how it is, and we're still going to continue on as who we are. We're not going to allow this to change who we are and to tear us apart and to separate us. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was very interesting to watch and get that perspective, because now them being on this boat and kind of more frantic, and it's being an all-out people killing each other,
Right.
and all that type of stuff. So
Well, there's something in the chat room, actually. This is coming from Mardova 808. From what I gathered, George was slowly exposing his family to cyanide, which would actually explain the mother, her lips were kind of a funny colour when she was having the conversation outside with Maddie. And this would tie in with that, because that would be an effect of cyanide. And the son, Harry, did refer to his power pills as well.
yeah.
So exposing the family to cyanide so that they'd all die together on the land that they'd been born on.
Is that how cyanide works? You take multiple pills over a long period of time?
I'm no expert in murder.
I was under the impression in
It's just
like
one, yeah.
spy movies and stuff and comic books that I thought you one pill and you die.
Yeah.
I think, or maybe it wasn't cyanide, it was something else, but I think you can effectively
It's
drip
gradually.
feed, because if you
Yeah.
do it
Got
so
it.
like it will give symptoms. Oh, I've watched too much Law and Order. It will give the symptoms of an illness.
Yeah.
But you won't necessarily then get a tox screen.
Yeah.
If someone was taken into hospital to go, okay, you've suddenly got a load of cyanide in your system.
Got it.
It will kind of look.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Right
Wolf.
on cue.
It will give that kind of effect.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you guys, why do you think he decided to make that decision to do it gradually? Maybe in the chat you can help. Instead of just doing it, all in one swoop. I mean, he could have just put it in their drink, or, like, why do you think he sort of allowed it to go on?
Well,
for
maybe
as
he
long as it
wasn't.
did?
I mean, the kids seemed fine, so maybe
Yeah.
he wasn't necessarily doing it with all of them. I mean, the
Yeah.
older son, the daughter, and the very young son,
Yeah.
they all looked absolutely fine. But don't forget that she also, the mother has said in the episode that she had MS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if she was effectively the weakest,
Yeah.
and he saw himself as the one that was really going to save the family, he might, if this was the case, he might have just been trying to slowly dispose of her.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
In that instance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was definitely pretty frightening, and we didn't quite hit home everything that was happening until about
Yeah.
20 minutes left in the episode when it got really, really, really dark.
Yeah.
But as they get on land and they're having those first conversations, the conversations between Travis and George, I thought were
Very
pretty
interesting.
wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's just sort of thinking about George and the way he was talking, the way he would refer to, he was so creepy.
Yeah.
He was so engaging and interested and smart, but one of these people who when you meet them you're just like, you're just a little bit
Back up,
off.
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But that's often the case when you look at sort of cults where people,
Yeah.
you know, they do this kind of thing. They tend to be this kind of self-justifying, very clear on their vision, but slightly sinister, but a calm sinister, not
Yeah.
like a raving lunatic, but it's calculated. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could be where that comes from.
what did you guys think about the scene where Seth is out there with the pickaxe and he's killing the walkers with Chris? And there was this really weird vibe they were giving. It was the music that was doing this. They were building that scene to make us think something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
Up until Chris hits that final walker with the pickaxe. Was there any part of you guys that thought just maybe it was something really bad was going to happen? He was going to swing and maybe his hand gets nicked by the mouth, or I didn't know. There was part of me that thought maybe they're going to just give us something. I didn't think they were going to kill him so fast, but
What I did think would potentially happen is that the older son was going to put Chris in a position where potentially either to scare him or to potentially just assert some authority would put him in a position where he could have potentially been in very close proximity to a walker.
yeah.
Yeah. go ahead.
No, that's fine.
I just kind of took it as them really trying to add more tension between Travis and
Yeah,
Chris.
definitely.
Because, you know, they showed the scene in the last episode where Chris punches Travis, which, I mean, they didn't really seem to have a resolve after that.
No.
Like, they just kind of left it as is. They didn't really seem to have a resolve about it in this episode either. And so all of their interactions with each other thus far have been very tense, have been very
Right.
awkward. So, you know, I just kind of took it as, okay, this is Chris in some way still trying to be defiant a little bit,
Right.
you know? No, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to kill this last walker, and you're not going to tell me otherwise, you know?
But I think Travis's response to that was because he's obviously, you know, in the first season and already in this season, he's seen a lot of shit go down.
Yeah.
You know, so
definitely.
seeing a zombie killed is not like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
You know, they're seeing that day in, day out. He genuinely looked disgusted and very disappointed with
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah.
Because it was so cold, it was so calculated,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a situation where he had to kill a walker in order to protect the group.
Yeah.
He was
just-
doing it almost as therapy and getting out
getting
his
the
anger.
rage,
And you could see that in his face,
And
yeah.
he was kind of like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And
I
he makes a
don't
comment of
recognize
that,
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says he used to mow the lawn. He
Yeah.
used to
Yeah.
take out the garbage. Like, these are things that used to be normal. So again, it's kind of hitting home that, okay, life as we know it,
Yeah.
it's over. It's gone. Like, this is my kid, my child, and now he has to grow up, and this is his reality, and this is what he has to do, you know, from normal day to day. I really love the line where they said, you know, we have nothing but time here.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in this time of nothing, it's like, well, who do we become? What kind of people do we become? Who do we
Generally-
evolve into?
Generally, the script this week was ridiculously tight. It was
Yeah.
there were so many. I found myself taking down several quotes.
Yeah.
So tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice little nuggets of dialogue that were delivered really simply
right
but
time.
really effectively. I mean, that was a standout thing about the episode.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier, the music as well is becoming
Yeah.
so much more
Like
a
a
part of the
character,
show.
yeah.
Of this show, yeah,
This season.
absolutely, yeah. They narrate certain scenes without any words, just a character walking around.
Yeah.
It's a great use, and it's nice to see them differentiate that from the previous show. So referring to what we were just talking about, and with Travis and his sort of assessment of Chris, and this idea of the varying levels of maturity, because that's the beauty of this group and this young age of these characters in the show, not their actual, but you know, the age in the crisis, is that you get to watch each one of them develop at sort of their own pace. And at the beginning, each one of them has this very distinct point of view.
Yeah.
Obviously, the two most significant points of view are Travis and Madison, because they're the sort of, when the show starts, they're sort of like the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
They're so much less similar than it would have seemed at the beginning of the show as these reasonable adult characters.
Yeah.
Something I started thinking about tonight was, and we talked about this a lot last season, but Madison seems to get it, and Travis kind of gets it, but he doesn't seem to get it quite as much. He seems to put himself in these tougher situations he's a bit weaker, it seems. He doesn't have the ability usually to realize that you have to be a bit cruel, you have to be a bit cynical to navigate this world. So my question is, the ultimate move is going to be for one of them to lose the other. That's what I see eventually happening. I don't think it's going to happen this season by any means, but I think the ultimate change in this show is that either Travis or Madison get taken out, and that's going to be the breaking point that changes the other character for throws
better
them
than
into the
worse.
sort of stratosphere of what they're really going to end up being as a character.
Well, I think a big part of that is the fact that Madison, obviously, we know that she used to work with teenagers and kids and that kind of thing. So I think she's seen good people can go bad. People can be assholes.
Yeah.
So I think she's kind of ready for that. And I think Travis is, certainly what I'm getting from his character is the fact that he would rather think that people are better people than they actually
the
are.
best
He would
in people.
he would love to see the best.
Yeah.
And he's having to deal with a lot of definitely not the best coming out of people. So he's really having to kind of redefine his own school of thought and his own ideology, really, which I think he is struggling with at the moment.
Well, I mean, she says, take my children. And Madison's like, I understand. I explained to Travis. And Travis says, let me talk to George.
Yeah.
What the hell are you going to talk to George about? You want to take
Yeah.
his
Right.
kids?
Yeah,
that's-
sure. Why not?
That's not going to go
He
well.
seems totally stable.
I mean, I
Yeah.
was gonna, poison them with cyanide, but go ahead. Yeah, show them a good time.
I think,
know.
I think he saw that coming, though. I think George, when the minute he walked into the house towards the end of the episode, and he knew what was going down
He saw
with
it
his
immediately.
wife, he knew
Yeah.
exactly what was going down.
Probably because
Yeah.
she had said something about it to him before or something.
Yeah. One thing I didn't understand though with him was when obviously we saw towards the end of the episode that the daughter had turned and bit the mother.
Yeah.
We heard a gunshot,
Yeah.
but the mother then was outside of the property.
Yeah,
So-
how did she get out so fast down the stairs, down the beach?
She
to
was
the
not
dock?
moving particularly quickly.
Yeah.
And there was one gunshot.
So did he kill himself?
Did he kill himself? Did
No,
he
I
kill?
thought that the gunshot was Seth. Like I thought he was firing kind of
this
as
was-
to
this
get
was-
their attention. Was there a gunshot before that?
Yeah,
one?
it
There
was
were two
when
gunshots?
originally
Yeah.
the daughter bit the mother, and then George said, "Everybody get out! I'm going to take care of this."
Yeah.
Then there was one gunshot.
Which you assumed was him killing her.
Yeah.
And in theory,
The
Really?
daughter.
Willa.
I thought I only heard one gunshot.
Yeah.
There was two. Yeah, so maybe he did have another one. I don't know.
He
It was
looked-
probably him killing himself.
He looked
at the very
genuinely broken and frightened in
Yeah.
the scene, though, when Willa turns and invites the mother, and he sits down there in the room and he says, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
He didn't have the look of a crazy like I'm going to kill all of us because none of us deserve to. He sort of really looked like lost. Like I don't know
This was
what
not
to do.
how it was supposed to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think there's planning something and there's doing something.
Yeah.
When you plan something, it hasn't happened. It's not a real thing. And then once you see your
The
daughter
reality of
turning,
it.
you see the reality. Yeah, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this
It's
was
like
it.
everybody's,
My
oh,
bad.
if I had
Yeah.
a gun, I'd be able to protect myself all the time.
No.
But it's like, realistically, if you're in a situation where you have to shoot a gun, you're more likely to not shoot the gun and shit your pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the reality of the situation is very difficult
Yeah.
and different to
What
what
you
you,
think might
might think
happen.
it would be.
Yeah.
So there's that reality, that harsh reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the kids a little bit. So Nick and Alicia. Small episode for Alicia. She has her best scene is the scene that she isn't speaking, ironically. But it is a great scene of hers because, as you said, the music is sort of is beginning to narrate scenes for us. It's
Yeah.
beginning to become a character in the show. And what did we look up? The band was Ohio, and the song was Coxcomb Red.
Yeah.
The lyric being
Very dark lyrics. But
the world
almost
is so
poetic.
pale next to you.
Yeah.
Something about a viper.
Your hair was coxcomb red and
Yeah.
your
Black, your
black eyes.
eye,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now she writes something on that wall there at the station wherever she was checking in
It
there.
appeared to be a doodle,
Yeah,
just
design.
like a
Almost like a
swirl?
Yeah.
maze.
Yeah.
You know?
which I didn't quite understand. I don't know whether it was just almost like you see sort of walkers in doing things that they would do in normal life. And we've seen this in other zombie shows and,
Yeah.
and things. They kind of go through. There's something in their brain where they do it as a system. And for me, that was a little bit of her. If you see a form and you're going to write on it, you're going to write. But if you don't have anything to write, she just did a doodle
The doodle.
Yeah.
because
That's
she
what I thought.
wanted to do something because that's what she would normally do.
Yeah.
But she didn't actually have anything, so she just did a squiggle.
Yeah, it was like kind of her reach out, better than a name because obviously you're not signing up for any
Yeah.
Carolina lessons. But I kind of took that as her just trying to find some semblance of.
Apparently, Neil Navarro in the chat room has said it's her tattoo.
Oh. Yes.
So that,
Okay.
I wasn't aware that she
think
had a
that's
tattoo.
correct.
But
Yeah,
that,
yeah, that
okay,
sounds right.
Cool.
I'm wondering what they're going to do with her character. I mean, we talked about it last week. I think at least two of us guessed her for Carol Watch last week. She sort of wanders. She sort of floats in this show. She had a big episode last week because she had the stuff on the radio with Jack. But I'm just sort of like, they're not painting her as a very assertive character who can particularly take care of herself yet. She's sort of she doesn't seem like she's helpless, but she does seem a bit clueless. She seems to just kind of float, and she's observing. Whereas Nick seems to be much more willing to kind of, he's like a problem solver. He's curious. He's an adventurer. He wants to explore. He's jumping in the water. He's playing with the kids. He's the one that sees the plot coming. Maybe it's an age thing, but I'm sort of wondering what they're going to do with her character. It seems like they have the luxury right now. She gets to just be kind of a minor character until they want her to be something more. Whereas with Mercedes Mason character, with Ophelia, I get a better sense of what they're trying to do with her. I get a stronger sense they're trying to develop her into a tougher character.
But also, a lot of the characters that were very prominent in last week's episode did take a lot of a backseat. I mean, Strand this week was still, he did a lot in the episode, but compared to the week before, he was a lot more of a backseat. But then you look at Salazar, and he was more forward this episode. But it was not in large amounts. So I think at the moment there is a bit of what you're saying, but I think there's an element of let's
give and take.
And because they got more episodes
now.
to play it out, they can push some people to the fore and then pull them back.
Yeah, it's kind of like Walking Dead, where you have episodes where something really crazy happens with one character, and then we won't see them again for another 3 episodes. So I think it's just kind of giving everyone their play and allowing the story to move forward with everyone not having to fight for the attention and the spotlight. But I agree. But I really did like how they at least try to showcase each character just sort of dealing with kind of being on shore, and then them being with this family and like other people, and it's somewhat kind of feeling normal, but not really, and them just all trying to adjust in this really awkward situation.
Well, it's definitely one of those things where having watched so many episodes of the previous show and then the 6 episodes of this one, with shows like this, because you're kind of constantly on the run in the world of walkers. Like you're never, the narrative of the show is never going to suggest that your characters can find a safe place and just exist. This is the show would stop being interesting. So every scene, especially when you meet new characters like the Gearys, you're watching and you're just like, okay, you're developing, you're having this conversation. You used to be a teacher, right? Like this stuff's happening. You're a survivalist. I get it. So one of 2 things is going to happen. Either these characters are supposed to last, they're going to be in the show longer, and they're going to serve a purpose, or they're going to be, a ship in a bottle character where they only exist this one episode. Some function of what's happening here is supposed to show us something about our main characters, and ultimately there will be a disaster that ends this, because otherwise they would continue to be in the show. Because, for instance, if this episode had gone, nothing weird had happened, they had just gotten back on the ship and left, this would have been a tremendously boring episode. Because the first half of the episode you're watching and you're like, this is interesting, but these conversations they're not doing that much for me. It's not like without that final 20, this episode doesn't really hit. It's just kind of like that slow melodrama character building stuff, And
it hit in a really interesting way because when the son Seth, he takes the other son Harry off the boat and he says, you guys ruined everything, or something to that. You caused this, something to that effect. So for me, it kind of hit that are they going to be the group where they're going to be kind of going from group to group, kind of similar to The Walking Dead in a lot of cases, where they had good intentions and they really did want to help the people that they encounter, but then they kind of ended up making it a little bit more disastrous than when they came, because, even though the dad, George, had planned to kind of kill the whole family, now it's left with just Seth, who he's not completely helpless, but at the same time, he's still a kid himself. And then you have the young son, Harry, who's there, and now the mom is gone. All 3 of them are now gone. And so they kind of really didn't make matters better, in a sense.
Well, I think certainly it was an element of the fact that when they arrived on land, obviously, he had this plan for his family and what they were going to do and what they were doing with their daily lives to exist and make sure that the other people on the island didn't know that they were there. And then it kind of accelerated it because it changed, the dynamic changed. They weren't just themselves anymore.
Right.
So it was kind of like, this plan that's been a fundamental plan that we've been slowly working towards has to be actioned in some way now.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we move away from that, and we've now seen essentially what's happened there. So Nick is kind of problem solving. He's playing with the kids. He's having these sweet moments. He figures out that there's a nefarious plot going on. While on the boat still, you have Salazar and Ophelia watching Strand. And Strand is definitely up to no good, or he's up to something that he's not being totally on the up and up. Salazar's having a great scene with him.
Yeah.
He knows he's
Loving
full of
it.
it.
Well, today they had a couple of great scenes
Yeah.
because there was a bit at the beginning, just after they got to the land, and
Yeah.
Strand was saying, "Oh, I'll stay on the boat," and Salazar was like, "Oh no,
we'll
I'll
stay.
stay. I'll stay."
Yeah.
He was
We
like,
got
"No,
you.
I'll be
We
fine on
got
my own." He's
you.
like, "No, mate, I'm staying."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. And then there was the picking up on how Strand referred to the boat.
The boat.
And it was like, oh, blah, 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 a $10 million boat. And he was like, a $10 million? Or do you mean my?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, my. And it was interesting. There's this... I think they're still trying to suss each other out. Obviously, Salazar doesn't trust Strand
Yeah,
at
of
all, and I
course.
think there is clearly something going on.
Right.
And he's obviously has a deadline of sundown to make something happen, whatever it is.
And he has this hidden machine gun.
Has
these
this hidden
maps.
machine gun maps, something to do with
Mexico,
Mexico, which
yeah.
will tie in with the Spanish that we heard him speaking last week. So I think there's this. I think they'll eventually become actually quite good friends and quite important allies.
Those two, yeah.
Once they stop sort of dicking about, really,
Yeah.
and kind of trying to do, I'm doing my own thing. Oh, I don't need you. I think they'll realise that they actually do need each other, and they're much stronger
As a unit.
together rather than rubbing up against each other.
They become a great pair, absolutely, and
Yeah.
they serve that purpose. With it's like sort of you think about the construction of a team in this type of a show,
Hmm.
and not even just in the zombie universe, but it's sort of in a survival universe. You need a certain number of each type of character.
Yeah.
So you need sort of the muscle, the people who are willing and understand how to fight or how to be cunning, how to cut corners, right, to protect themselves.
Hmm.
You definitely do need to some degree, like, I don't want to call them a pacifist, but slightly more gentle characters. You need some cunning characters, right?
Yeah.
Voice of reason.
Yeah,
There's-
which
you
is
know,
why I
yeah.
think it's, and I'll bring it up again, why I don't think Chris will last. Honestly, he just doesn't. He serves. He still feels like he serves no purpose.
In the chat room, a lot of people are in the chat. A lot of people are getting quite pissed off with Chris.
Yeah.
He's beginning to annoy some of the audience.
I mean, he's written that way, obviously.
yeah.
He's being written as an angsty teenager,
Yeah.
but they, in the way that Alicia doesn't feel yet like she is serving a particular purpose, he
Very
feels the
similar.
same way,
Yeah.
but they're setting him up to be much like less sensible, more reckless, put himself in danger, much more likely to. I don't know, but that's only 2 episodes in, so.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, could be a good setup for Travis's character, or Travis, rather, because, you know, he kind of needs something to help him progress a little bit more as a character, even if it's going more in the direction of how Madison views
Yeah.
how to do with things. You know, if something were to happen to Chris, like, that would be a really good push in that direction.
I think that'll be the early one, but I really do firmly believe what I said earlier, that I think it won't be this season. Maybe next season, I don't know, but either Madison or Travis will get taken out, and that'll be a gigantic turning point. In the same way that Laurie was a huge turning point in the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
That like, without saying anything else, in the same way that was a huge turning point, I think this will be a huge turning point.
Well, we know that something is from the throw ahead to next week's episode. We know that someone is kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what was the last thing? It was
He's
he's
dying or something
dying.
like that, yeah.
So someone, a male character, whether it's someone new or whether it's someone that's already in it,
Yeah.
is gonna possibly meet their end.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. We found out this week, obviously, it's been renewed for the 3rd season, which
Yep.
is great news, by the way. Congratulations to everybody involved. Do you think they would, this early on in this season, kill somebody off?
Be like a Game of Thrones style.
Yeah,
nobody's
like
safe.
a Travis.
It would be really
Would it be a lot-
tough.
I don't think it'd be the best move.
No.
Because I feel like in some ways we're still just trying to get a handle on the characters too. You know,
Yeah.
we only had 6 episodes for the first season, and those episodes, they had, you know, a lot of moments where there was dialogue and we kind of got to know about people. But I felt like we focused a lot on Travis, Madison, and Nick. Kind of. We didn't really get to dive too much into the other characters and
Yeah.
get their backstory as much. So I feel like, you know, we kind of still need some time with them. I mean, that's just my opinion. Obviously, the writers are going to do whatever they're going to do. But I don't know. I just feel like because this is a very different story where the characters are so much a part of, or just the main characters like Travis and Madison, or just all the characters in general. Like, this is a very character-oriented
Show, right.
show. So, you kind of have to be very careful when that's kind of your strongest play, in your deck of cards.
Yeah, when I say that, I don't believe that in episode 16 you're going to see Travis get taken out. It would be like a season 3 finale thing. It would be like next season at the end of the season.
Are you calling Travis?
I was just trying to figure out which would make more sense. At this point, I'll have to see how they develop the two characters through the end of the season to really have a stronger sense of it.
Yeah.
It's really about, they have two options. If they continue moving these two characters in the direction that they've been taking them, and they've been doing it since season 1 very consistently. Travis continues to be kind of as you said, he wants to believe the best in people. He's a little bit naive. He's getting stronger.
Yeah.
He's not a weak character. It's just that his willingness to believe the best in people seems to put him in a little bit more of a compromised situation.
That's fair.
Madison, she seems to be a little stronger. It's not like she doesn't see the value in what Travis thinks. She does want to help people, but her willingness, I think, to kind of get her hands dirty, her willingness to be a little more evil to survive, it seems like, and so they're both flawed in their own way. But the question is, if they just keep moving them in these two directions in the same way, they keep hitting the same notes, it would make the most sense for Travis's death to push Madison into a full-on leadership role than the other way around. To me, that would be the thing. But it would, I'm talking end of season 3. So we should talk about Ophelia and Salazar a little bit, because they had a great scene, and she has a great quote. This world, and he said, "I wish this wasn't the world I wished you to grow up in." She says, "No, this world's good. It's teaching me a lot." And she says, "It's cruel. It helps me understand you," which I guess is suggesting you're cruel. That's what she's saying.
Yeah,
of course.
But that's interesting, right? Because she says, "Can we dock?" And says, "We have to, or can we stay here? We have to be invited in." Really, she's surprised.
Yeah, well, he's very much, and I this is something that hit me watching the episode as well. He's very much about, and I don't know whether this is just trying to maintain some level of normality or just respect for other human beings, but he's quite proper in the way that he does things.
Old school, sort
yeah,
of.
he's old school, he's calculated, everything he does is reasoned. I think he's very much like, if everything else is going to hell, as long as you're polite and you don't take liberties and you don't just barge in, if I treat you with respect, there is more chance of you treating me with respect, which means that everybody will win, rather than some other characters there who were just like, screw you, I'm going to get what I need from you, and that's kind of the way it's going to go down.
And I think they're trying to play his whole like family vibe, because he was very family from day one when you first meet him, and that's kind of what they're trying to suggest, is that if you treat everybody with respect, then it's like family values and all that.
Well, I think it's why he's going back to the relationship between him and Strand. I think it's why he and Strand are actually going to be a really good team together, is because you've got Strand, who's doesn't give a damn and has balls the size of Mexico.
Right.
He will just do whatever needs to be done, and he's not going to bat an eyelid.
Right.
But not to say that Salazar wouldn't, but he would do it in a far more planned, calculated, methodical manner. So they both have strength in very different ways.
Right.
But they just execute it in two totally polar ways.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's clear to me what they're doing with Ophelia. That I feel like I get that. It's not like it's poorly written. It's just pretty obvious. She hasn't gotten a tremendous amount of screen time yet. What do you guys think about Nick? What are they doing with Nick's character? Where are they taking him? What's his arc gonna be? I'm kind of confused.
Yeah.
I'm just glad he finally changed his shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, dear God.
That is.
Now we're working on that jacket. But yeah, no, I mean, he almost, in a weird way, kind of seems like the whimsical, lighthearted piece of the show.
Yeah.
He still is kind of like a kid. Like when he was with the kids, like kind of almost like, okay, I know it's the apocalypse and it's the end of the world, but
Yeah.
But still, I don't know. It just hasn't really hit him, I think, as much as it's hit Alicia and it's hit Nick. And I kind of hit Chris. And I kind of almost like that aspect of it. And
he has like a sense of humor about it
still. Very sense of humor, still very kind of lighthearted and almost starting to be likable. I'll be honest, I did not like him in the first season. But now I feel like, in a lot of ways, and you don't always know his motives behind it, because when he was in the house searching through the pill cabinets and stuff like that, I thought, okay, he's back on his drug addiction,
Right.
But it's, he seems like he's just more willing to kind of help and not be a screw up. And, he says that line to Travis, like, I can help out, you know, type of things. I think he's now trying to prove himself more. So maybe they are trying to, kind of shift the whole storyline with Nick in terms of him being a little bit more mature and maybe just being a little bit more helpful than I think the other kids have been in this season.
And I think also it's quite interesting because obviously at the moment we're seeing everybody else's worlds turned upside down.
Yeah.
Everything that they knew is now very different, and they're all kind of like just trying to hold it together and make it work. He has previously been living in a world where, because of his substance addictions, his whole take on reality has been altered. Yeah. So for the first time, he's actually got clarity. So he's kind of had his craziness and he's been able to handle that. So when he's got this clarity and this sobriety, handling what is actually going down and being a bit crazy, he's actually the only one who's kind of gone
Holding
through
his
it
own,
to the other
He's
side.
prepared,
he's been there.
It's a cool, it's like from a writing standpoint, it's a cool place to start your show.
Yeah.
To have him as the first guy you see, show opens with him, and then to realize that because of what he's been through, and he's lived in these burnt out houses, and he's been a drug addict, like, that this world is, in some ways, he's such a survivor already. When you live that way, you're such a survivor that he does become a strong character without actually having to exhibit strength, which is cool. He doesn't have to kill people or anything like that to feel like he's a bit in control. Yeah. So yeah, I think what did we miss? I guess just the final scene, which we've already sort of talked about a little bit, but definitely a heartbreaker as they're on the boat pulling away. And, this little kid, Harry's got his back turned.
Well, it just made me feel that I thought it was really nice by the fact that you hear a shot, and obviously we find out that he's taken down his mother. So you've just got the two boys. We don't know what's happened to the father, whether he shot himself or whether he's still in the house. We also, earlier in the episode, were informed that there were weekenders who were in this resort, this harbour that's further along the island. I would have liked to have seen something going on there, but I think, because we've obviously got the two sons alive, possibly the father still alive, and we've obviously got some other stuff going on that island, I don't think we've seen the last of those characters.
They may come back,
I think, there's a strong chance that they could reoccur. Maybe not this season, but perhaps later on in a kind of a Walking Dead kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. That's always the you're always able to bring people back. That's strong. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's one of those things. Obviously, small children losing their parents is always going to be a tearjerker. Just in the way that cruelty to animals is a tearjerker. It's hard to avoid that sort of thing, and it absolutely was. Just the kid saying goodbye to his mom. Even actually more tragic to me than the final scene may have just been the scene when she's explaining to them before George walks back in, and she's explaining to them what the kid's preferences are in the real world. His hair,
shampoo,
and you're just like, oh God, this is so sad. This is just makes me want to cry listening to this. Anyway, should we get into predictions?
Okay, cool.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So this will be complete with Carol Watch, hashtag Carol Watch, whoever we think is the most likely to become the Rambo of the show, the undercover Rambo, so to speak, as well as other predictions. And this will be with spoilers, guys. So every week I think we'll do our predictions with spoilers. So if you don't
Spoiler alert!
want to know anything we know or what have you, just, it's probably not the best.
Ring the alarm.
Who wants to go first?
I mean, I sort of have been ranting this whole episode with my long-term prediction.
Okay.
My long-term prediction is that it's going to be Travis that bites it sometime in, I think, season 3. And I do believe that Chris will be the character to die this season. Those are like my 2 death predictions. I still have my money on Alicia as Carol Watch, but this week I started to, for whatever reason, shift more towards Ophelia. I started to get the feeling more from her that she is the one that they're going to slowly but surely build into that character. She's so quiet and calculated, and she seems to be getting it in a way that I think it might actually be her. I'm still calling Alicia, but by next week I may have shifted to Ophelia.
Yeah. I think I'm going to still stick with Nick.
You think Nick's going to be the character? Interesting.
I think I said that last week.
Yeah.
And I think I'm sticking with it.
Fair.
There's just so many places for his character to go.
Yeah.
And even though I think he does in a lot of ways possesses a strength that is without, like physical strength, I think that he's still very unstable to where he can easily slip back into the addicted Nick, who was kind of a screw up and just sort of made things worse. So there's a lot of potential for him to sort of relapse and just have those moments where he kind of makes things worse, and then that kind of really opens his eyes and forces him to see, like, okay, I really need to get my SH together. As far as predictions, I think we haven't seen the last of the boat that was following them.
Yeah.
I think that'll resurface hopefully within the next episode or two. I'm really interested to learn what's in Mexico and where Strand is trying to have them go by sundown. I think there'll be an interesting showdown, so to speak, between Salazar and Strand, and that'll be interesting to see how that goes down. And then overall, I don't know. I'm feeling like Ophelia might kick the bucket this season.
You think Ophelia's not going to make it, huh?
I don't think. I don't know why I'm feeling that way. I guess because I feel like what they're doing with Strand and Daniel, it's very interesting, and I feel like for them to really become a strong pair, they kind of almost can't be.
Salazar has to lose everyone.
Yeah, they kind of can't really be an affiliate.
Sucks to
there.
be Salazar.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And their relationship is so tense as it is. It parallels really well, I think, to Chris and to Travis's relationship with each other. So if one of them has to go, then I think that Ophelia might be.
Looks like we have a Carol watch. We have Megan Baxter. Travis and Chris will die. Also, possibly Ophelia. Alicia will be the next Carol. Hashtag Carol watch.
See, I think Ophelia, again, is going to be one that dies this season. And
You're sure of it?
yeah, I'm kind of, yeah. And I think for my Carol watch, last week I said Strand.
Yeah.
This week, I'm going to say Salazar.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because today, one of the scenes towards the end of the show, where the older son came on, threatened everybody with a gun, Salazar was there behind the doorway.
With the gun.
With a gun.
Could have done it.
Could have done it. Could have taken him out. Didn't.
Had the shot.
Yeah. And for someone, he tends to be a person who has alternatives to that.
Right.
And for him to get a gun out and point it at somebody, I think we're gonna see something come out of him very soon.
Ruben Blades.
But I think we're really gonna see something that's gonna surprise us. Perhaps not in a good way.
Yeah, he's definitely.
Perhaps not in a good way.
I mean, as Ophelia said, he's cruel. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's definitely some interesting stuff there. I think that's a fair prediction. I'm still sticking with Alicia, but I may be on Ophelia next week. As far as my Carol watch goes, the one thing I want to just get everybody's just quick elevator pitch, 10 seconds, is what's in Mexico? What's going on? Why are we going to Mexico?
I think I don't know why military is popping in my head.
Okay, military.
I'm thinking military. I feel like he's associated with something to do with the government. Something otherwise. I feel like he has too much information. I don't know. It seemed. I feel military.
I think something is on that boat. There's something hidden somewhere on that boat.
Yep.
That I was gonna say drugs originally, but maybe it's drugs and something else that's important, and that's what they have to get there to deliver. Because whatever it is, it's important enough for Strand in this world when there's no real recourse that somebody's gonna come after him, that he has to get that to somewhere to get something from someone. So something that they can get from wherever they're taking this is important to survival.
You see, I think there's a bit of both in there. I don't think it's necessarily military, and I don't think it's necessarily drugs. I think it might be something like freedom fighters. I think he might be part of a larger group. And I think that's another group that he's meeting up with, as in strength in numbers, which is why I think he's being very careful about the number of people that they let on the boat.
Interesting.
Because I think he knows how many people he has to account for.
Yeah.
And I think that might be why. And also, Comic-Con's going to be gutted because San Diego is destroyed.
Yeah.
So where are they going to hold
Where in the
Comic-Con
world?
for all the fans of Fear the Walking Dead?
Oh my goodness.
Sucks.
Catalina.
Sucks.
I hear that's pretty nice this time of
Yes,
zombie
they
area.
have a lovely wine event there as well. Thanks, Step Brothers. So.
Not wait for Comic-Con. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the episode today. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your predictions once again. If you want to share your prediction on who the undercover Rambo is, it is #CarolWatch. I'm at Ben Bateman Media. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Let me know your thoughts. Lovely friends, where can they find you?
Yes, find me on Twitter, Ashley_Chatman, and Facebook. You can like my fan page, Ashley Chatman. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week.
And you can find me on Twitter at ShowbizSimon and Instagram at ShowbizSimon, and on Facebook at facebook.com/This is Simon Thompson, but never on the backseat of your car because that's just threatening.
Bye,
No,
Felicia.
well, maybe once.
See you guys next week.
All right, bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.